Welcome, everybody, to Close More Sales with Steve Lentini. I'm just getting everything adjusted here, so have some patience while I set up the room. Here we go. Okay, it's Thursday, December 17th. My name is Steve Lentini. I've been involved in sales and sales management for over 40 years and training since 1998 when I bought the license for the Sandler Sales Institute and taught their program until 2003 for a little over 5 years. And after I had a major health challenge, I gave up the Sandler license and I thought, it's time to write my own program, something I wouldn't have been able to do while I was a licensee for Sandler, write some books. And I did. I wrote 4 different books. I'm working on a 5th and the 6th. One is being published right now by Motivational Press, called Sales Success for the Rookie, How to Succeed at Sales Right from the Start. And I've also written Sales Success for the Seasoned Sales Veteran. I've written Wake Up, Jump Into Your Life. I've written Sales Success for the Spiritual Salesperson, How to Close Sales Without How to Sell Without Losing Your Soul. And I think some people are afraid of selling, and it's just that they've learned it the wrong way from people who either are uneducated or greedy or motivated by the wrong things when it comes to selling today. So I would say since the 80s, early 80s, selling has been changing dramatically. And like the internet and the web, and so many things have changed, selling is also changing, and it's because of all the information that people can get from the internet, and they want to be treated. Prospects and customers want to be treated a certain way. So some of the old-fashioned salespeople are still bringing bagels and donuts and gift cards and trying to schmooze somebody or smear them with a little bit of graft, kickbacks, and really kickbacks they're going out of fashion. People are going to get caught more and more doing it. It's an out of integrity act. Eventually, the salespeople doing it are going to get hammered themselves, because what you put out in life, you get back. And those are all of some of the things that we're going to talk about today. So let's start with you get what you give. And a lot of people don't understand the law, but you're always putting out an energy, and what you want to do is manage the energy that you put out. So I've worked with people that have no clue about this. I've been doing this for 40 years, and so over all these 40 years, people try to figure out who I'm talking about, but I've been doing it for 40 years. It's not personal. It's just I've been blessed with traveling with a lot of salespeople, working with a lot of salespeople, working with a lot of business owners. I did some work for a company where I managed the relationship with 62 owners of distribution businesses. I've done work with software companies, with service companies, with healthcare equipment companies. I've done work with a lot of different companies. And what I've found, and what are some of the things that are in common, is people have no idea about managing a lot of people have no idea about managing the energy they put out. And so they're like wild cowboys, or they're like gunslingers, or they're just like, they're just shitheads. Pardon my French, but that's how they show up in life, and they have no idea. And you can't change until you have some idea about how you show up. So the energy that you put out is really important, and you can close more sales by managing the energy that you put out. So last year I closed a $1.2 million sale for one of my clients, and it was about managing the energy I put out in front of the prospect. And the energy I put out was I left them space to make a decision that might have gone against us. And most people, there's no way they can do that. But I respected the gentleman's thoughts. That he had concerns about whether the company that I was consulting had the proper experience to do the job right. and rightfully so. And so we just addressed that up front. And then as we answered his questions, I particularly answered his questions and took over the sale at one point because I noticed that the salesperson I was working with had made him uncomfortable. And so I took the sale over, and in the end, he called me and said, "Hey, Steve, we want to buy from the company that you're working with. The thing is, we don't want the salesperson. How do we do that?" I said, "Well," he said, "we want you." I said, "Who do you want?" He said, "We want you." And I said, "Well, you can do that as long as you allow the commission to go to the guy you don't like, as long as you're okay with that." He said, "Yeah, I am okay with it." So here I saved the sale for a guy who was making the prospect very uncomfortable with his energy. So halfway through the process, I let the prospect know. I said, "I think you're uncomfortable with the salesperson." And he said, "Yeah." I said, "So what's making you uncomfortable?" And he said, "The guy is pushing for way too much business. He wants me to give him all the business. And when we're talking about just the portion that we discussed with you guys up front, our concern, we only want you to address our area of concern." And this is what salespeople have to listen for today, is when they get in front of people, it's not an opportunity to push everything. It's the time to listen. It's the time to listen. So the key to get is when you're in front of people, it's not about you, and to manage the energy so that you're projecting positive energy. You're actually thinking about giving the person a space to have their own ideas, which may disagree with yours. It may sound like that they're not a fit for you. Just keep listening and having questions. You should be curious. You could ask questions about, well, what if I said that I've sold people like you and it's been very successful, and not the way you're talking about, that we had to challenge the prevalent view, the predominant view, and ask them, how do you do that? So you get permission to challenge the predominant viewpoint. And then you should have a true third-party story. But if you're managing your energy properly, you're mirroring and matching the person. So you're even using some of their words, you're looking at their body language, you're watching for their tone. Do they talk loud? Do they talk fast? Do they talk slow or slower? And then you would match their physiology and their tone now you're connecting with the person because you're showing them empathy. And you can actually have some empathy. You can feel it within yourself. So again, a lot of people don't know about these tools because they're either uneducated or unwilling to be trained. There's a lot of salespeople that are not trained. If they're not trained, then they have a very rusty toolbox. That's what they show up with, probably what they've used for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. And things change. And if you don't change, then things won't change for you. So it's just fascinating how many different industries, too, are just eschew training. They're just not into training. And again, typically that's in either a low IQ view or a uneducated view. So imagine being Derek Jeter or being Big Papi and not taking batting practice, right? So if you're a Boston Red Sox fan, they take practice before every game. And then in the off season, a lot of guys continue to go. A lot of them have enough money, of course, so they make their own training area and they invite other players, and they continue training in the off season because people know that in order to be the best, professionals know in order to be the best, they have to continue training. So I'm not bragging, this is fact, but I read almost every sales book that comes out. And for my clients, I'm the Cliff Notes for all the books, which is great. They don't have to read it, but they're practicing by engaging me. So I coach them and help them with some of the different ideas and how that they could look different and be different and become more successful. And most have, but it doesn't. It takes 3, 4, 5, 6 years to uh, really hone the saw, sharpen the saw, as Stephen Covey says. And I've helped people with a block and changed their life in 90 days. Now they stayed on the path and stayed working with me, and they got it. They got that they needed to change within 90 days, and they did. And in fact, one client's husband noticed how much his wife changed, reported the changes he saw to his CEO and his company, and I was invited in to speak at that company. So again, based on people changing and the work they've seen, I get hired all the time. So I just got a couple of coaching clients this week that came from people seeing changes in other clients that I'm working with. And then I've helped companies change. And by helping companies change, things change. Now, some people aren't open to it, and I don't drag people through the work. I just don't. Because it's a waste of time. I know it works. I've been doing it for a long time, and I'm not going to drag people through it. So um, I don't quit working at it, and some people just are not open. They're closed. And some people don't have the awareness that they even need to change. Um, because they're, like I said, either uneducated or it might be a little narcissistic too. They believe the whole world revolves around them and there's nobody that could do anything better or different. And I've worked with, I don't know, maybe 10 of those people, 12. And so I'm becoming an expert at them. And I'm developing, the beauty is, so I'm grateful for everyone, especially the people who bug me. And what I've learned is I end up with training programs from them and from those experiences. So I end up with, I'm working on a book for family business because I've worked in and around family businesses since 1975. So for 40 years, and I'm using that experience and a lot of the real stories. There'll be some true stories. I'll change the names of the people, but there'll be some true stories that you'll be amazed if you buy the book how bizarre their cultures were in their businesses, and their businesses some were very successful and could have even been more successful if they hadn't been allowed such bizarre behavior into the business. And I have families that are sharing their stories with me. So I have there'll be some collaboration. And if you have a family business and you'd like to share stories of some of the craziness, give me a call. We'll change the names to protect the innocent, and we'll have some great stories that we can leave a legacy behind for other family business owners. And again, it's about managing energy. And some people think that they can just bring in all the family BS into the business. And really, they have to guard against that. And there's other things they have to guard against, which will be in the book. So again, we're talking about managing the energy that one puts out and how important it is. And giving what you want to get is what salespeople. So most salespeople are either greedy or they have a boss pushing them for more and more and more and more. And what they don't understand is what that does to the salesperson is now they become attached to outcomes. Then they start pushing prospects. Then they start grabbing quotes. Then they start doing bids because they want an easy, quick fix instead of developing relationships, understanding what's a good target, and going after only good targets, where they probably won't close half of those targets. But so what? They can always leave the door open for later on. Maybe they'll close another 10% of those targets later in future years, and in future months. I mean, I've let sales go. I've let 2 sales in particular that stand out in my mind. I've let them go totally, and offering to help the people. And in both cases, the sales came back to me, and they were almost $2 million in sales. In fact, it was over $2 million in sales between the 2 customers. So again, managing the energy that you put out in the world, you want to give out what you want to get. So that's how the universe works. So if you watch The Secret or read the books, pretty simple philosophy. But it also talked about you're always getting what you're giving. This is a physical law. So let me just explain it to you very simply. I keep doing that and expect a different result. I'm nuts. That's what Einstein called that for people that keep doing the same thing and expect a different result. It's the definition of insanity. So this is a cause and effect world, right? So that sound won't change until I change. So you see what I'm doing? I'm changing the sound and new things come. That's the same law. If you're stuck, if your sales are stuck, if you're frustrated, so frustration means you need to surrender and just let go whatever you're frustrated about. Let it go. You can't change it. You can only change you. And then if you have certain clients that, let's suppose you made a pretty good sale, you thought it was a good sale, and then 3 months later the client's gone, it's probably because you're similar somewhere. You're giving out that same energy that you're not a good, maybe you're not a good prospect for some of your own purchases. Maybe you beat salespeople up, or maybe you're always looking for the cheapest price in whatever you buy. That's an energy you're putting out, and it's going to come back to you. You're going to have people fighting you for the best price. I've seen guys work on price. They're so desperate to get a sale, and they start talking to companies about, hey, I can get you stuff for less. Let me see your invoices. And they get things, they get the business because they've shaved the price. Now they've trained the customer. They give out the invoices, and you'll get it. Maybe you'll get an even lower price, and they wonder why. Maybe 3 months, 4 months, 6 months later, they get a call from the customer that says, hey, I found some lower pricing, so I want you to come in. And now what you have is you can keep the customer, but what you have is, because you've been giving out that kind of lazy energy about just seeing their invoices, what you get from that laziness is you don't develop a sales process where you add value. So when you take the quote, you just train the customer to give the quotes out, give the invoices out, and then eventually, I was talking to a guy who owns a business and said, hey, I was working with somebody you know, Steve, and they offered to save me money and lower my pricing. And he said, my guys have found something even lower. And that's what they're going to go with. So they're going to take they're going to take the company out of the picture that originally lowered their pricing. Wow, right? How dumb. How dumb. Because they didn't build anything of value. So what the guy said to me that owned the company was, he basically said, this is all about price. And you know who the people that made it about price were? The other supplier, the supplier that got the business for 2 or 3 months. So that's fascinating to me that guys waste their time doing that kind of stuff. Add value, have a reason that customers should go to you, have a reason where you walk away from certain customers. So maybe you walk away, wow, more people are following me. That's great. I'm happy. There's a cash register one too, so you may hear that. So again, you manage the energy you put out, and what is it that you want to attract? So the law of attraction was mentioned in The Secret. And if you're always thinking about and talking to people about lowering their pricing, you're attracting more of that in. So what you think about and speak about, you bring about. So you need to spend some time, besides training about relationship and training how to close and have understanding questions and having a value proposition and having good target markets and having a healthy attitude. Your management has to support that kind of thing, and even support discussions about how to go after some of these customers. What's the best mindset to have as a productive salesperson? I mean, salespeople have to be productive, have to have the mindset of managing what goes on in their head, managing their energy. I worked with people who all they did was complain about being stuck in traffic, or had complaints about they could never or close. They didn't know anybody. I don't have a lot of contacts. I can never close any sales. I'm never going to grow. I've never had any help. I've heard these, I don't know, over the years, 20, 30 different people had complaints about how they were stuck and it wasn't going to work any other way. So imagine what those words and that thinking attracted. It attracted more and more of misery for them, because they couldn't get out of their own way. They couldn't close sales. They were convinced that they couldn't grow. And in fact, they were losing customers. Hello, they were attracting it. But see, most people would rather be a victim of circumstance. So most people would rather say, look what happened to me. Oh, woe's me. I lost business. I lost customers. I can't close anything. I'm in a rut. Look what's going on. Instead, it should be, look what you're creating. Why am I creating this mess? As you begin that inquiry of how am I creating this, you'll discover it's in your own thinking and in your own speaking and how you show up defeated in the world. So um, stop it. Get people around you. Get a coach. I coach people on this, and I help people through all these negative blocks. Plus, the people you surround yourself with. So if you're a negative person, chances are birds of a feather flock together. You're actually in a negative environment and you don't know it. So lobsters don't know they're being baked, right? They go into cold water and go, "Hey, buddy, good to see you. This is great." And then a few, 20 minutes later, they're going, "Hey, are you warm or is it just me? Are you, what's going on here?" And then 10 minutes after that, it's like, "Hey, buddy, I mean, it's really warm. Are you feeling okay?" What? What? Oh my God, he's dead. It's the same thing with selling. So if you have a negative mindset and you're defeated, and that's how you think, and that's how you start your day, chances are birds of a feather flock together that you're with negative people or people who, let's suppose that you waste a lot of time and energy on things that don't take you anywhere. Then what happens is it's because you're surrounded by people, you're not doing any better because you're attracting people who have no energy, and birds of a feather flock together. People that gossip and waste a lot of energy talking about other people. It's a poor culture to be in, and I've seen this in 10 different companies. So what happened is most of those companies couldn't get out of their own way. They could never reach another level, and maybe they did for a little while, but eventually it catches up to them, and then they wondered why they lost certain customers, and they got stuck with certain things, or a lot of mistakes were happening in the business. All of those things coming from the fact that they just had poor energy in the business and didn't manage it, and then so that's what they were attracting. They attracted employees and people with poor energy that really didn't help support the business. So when you're getting negative results, you have to look at what's going on in here, how you speak, and who's around you. Maybe you have to change everything. So I often change things. I've moved a lot of different times, 22 different times. And because I've had a lot of different job assignments, which is great. I mean, I'm a consultant, so I move from company to company helping them. And a lot of them, like I said, don't even know how their own words are impacting their culture. So I have a public company that I do work with some of their clients, and this January they want me to come in and conduct a complete program with their sales managers and leaders, all the leaders in the company. And it's about, because I've been coaching 4 of their people who had dramatic changes, and they're now part of the leadership team. The 4 people ascended into leadership roles. Uh, so they want me to come in and extend this conversation about managing one's energy and managing what they see from other people and not allowing, having boundaries around negative talk, negative energy, and wasting time like with gossip and complaining. Complaints without a request are not allowed, right? That's like leaving dog doo on someone's desk, like a bag of dog doo. It stinks and you can't do anything with it. You just have to throw it out. There's nothing positive gained by it. A complaint without a request. And so if you're a complainer, for example, that will affect your sales because you're complaining about the company, you're complaining about your customers, you're a complainer. And what do you think that attracts? More to complain about. So you're a complainer. It's okay to have a complaint if you take it to the person who can fix it. So let's say you're in a software company and your complaint is about something that needs to be upgraded in the software. It has to be included in whatever the next update is. You take that to the developer who's in charge of it, and you say, "Hey, here's what my customers are complaining about in the software. Here's my request." And it begins a dialogue. It doesn't mean that they take your idea, but it begins with the developer then would say, "Oh, great. Okay, I'm glad you brought me that complaint. So here's what I think I could do. And tell me why you think what your idea is. Where are you getting that from?" And then you could say, "Well, customers are saying, Steve, we need to see the software do this and this more effectively. Okay. Then you can tell the developer, what I did is I got that from customers. Customers were complaining. And then I noticed multiple customers were complaining. And then I realized this is something I need to bring up to the developer, and I'm bringing it to you, the guy that can do something about it, the gal that can do something about it. So instead of being over at the water cooler saying, oh man, can you believe it? The mess, the developers are just not getting it. How does that help the company? How does that help you? And you get more to complain about. You get more and more problems. You don't help improve the company or the software. So be someone, bring an energy of improvement. Be someone who wants to make a difference. And not a complainer, not a whiner. Even if your leader is a complainer or a gossiper or, someone who sucks the energy out of other employees, take the leader aside and say, this is not something that is healthy for the company. You're better off bringing that energy wherever you go, because that's what you'll be known to do. In some family companies, I've noticed relatives, people who are related, live with certain conditions for years and years and years and not speak up about it. They just accepted certain behaviors from their relatives. It's crazy. Family-owned businesses have to create the space to talk about anything, and to leave certain behaviors out of the business, and to talk about, hey, I got to talk to you about something uncomfortable. What you do in the business here in this fashion is not good. So that kind of complaint right to the person who could do something about it might make them angry, but so what? You have to do something about it. And I confess, I have not always, because sometimes the family members are so strong in their opinions that you can't change them. They don't want to hear it. And sometimes one family member starts to change, and that leads to things where they start to change and work on themselves. So as people, our job here in life is to begin at some point to recognize that we have challenges and we're not perfect. So what? Imagine not knowing. And then to take the feedback and begin the process of change. And when there's, when there's the environment of change, so once there's an environment of change, it actually helps the company. More and more change occurs. And this is what you want. That's what you want, even as an employee. You want to help the company change. And when you bring complaints to the people that can do something about it, you get known as a person of action. And the other thing is the energy you put out into the universe gets returned to you. So you're attracting more people around you that would complain with a request instead of being a victim and having a story in your head. And stories in our heads don't help us. By the way, you can send me questions at any time. You can send them to my email. I believe it's on the I believe it's on the tools. I'm sorry. You could chat with me, and at any time. And if you have questions, you can also send it, in case it's not on the room, you can send it to Steve at stevelentini.com, STEVE at STEVE, Steve Lentini, LENT as in Tom, INI.com, Steve at stevelentini.com. And I'll get back to you. I'm glad to. And you can call me, 917-805-1088. 917-805-1088. That's my cell phone. Always available. So I have a passion to help salespeople change. I believe that it's even a good trade. So people who you can go to college and learn a lot, and not a lot of colleges have sales courses. I think more and more are, though. I think that's good news. But I'm doing training with people who get out of high school, because I think that sales, if they take a special course after high school, It's a real good profession to get into, especially if you learn what I'm teaching, especially if you learn how to help people buy. All right, so that's my philosophy, is to help people buy, and I believe there's other people that teach it, by the way, throughout the country. My philosophy: help people buy. I'm also looking at the energy, and teaching people how to manage themselves and manage how they show up in life, because people buy from people they like and trust. So if you're a total jerk somewhere and you don't even know it, then you're probably, you listen. You can close sales, but you could probably close a lot more. I worked with a guy that was so obnoxious in the '80s, and he just didn't realize that he would have closed a heck of a lot more sales. And he was writing $2 or $3 million in business for a distribution company in 1987, '88. And I worked with him. I met him in 1982, and he came running down the hallway of the company saying, "Hey, see what I earned? Look at my paycheck." Yeah, right. So it's okay to be obnoxious and make sales. He really pushed people hard, and he chased a lot of people away. He could have been writing 4 million probably if he had a coach and somebody like me to teach him. Uh, so I've worked with hundreds and hundreds of salespeople, and the biggest gift you can give yourself is to work on yourself. That's really the biggest gift, and that's what I want to impress upon people. All right, so I always give a little extra. I start early and I end a little later because I believe in going the extra mile. I think all of you should too. You should all have that energy of giving more, and the more you give, the more you'll get, and the more you'll see. You'll be surrounded by people who are willing to give because you're a giver. And so when you give information to help people buy something, even if it's not you, you get something back. And like I said, I closed millions of dollars in sales and actually walked away and said, okay, you got 10 suppliers. I understand you're going to go to one. If they don't mention this or that, call me. I'll help you with it. And in two instances, that over $2 million, people call me back 2 weeks later and a month later. So this is what led me to this before I was doing sales training, and it led me to start to document a lot of this information. So working in family businesses, I documented and journaled certain stories that really impacted me, and some that bugged me a lot, some that didn't, some I thought were great ideas that were positive, some that were negative. But I'm grateful for all of my experiences in life, and this is another energy, is to be grateful for all your experiences in life, because they're there for a reason. So for me, a lot of the negative experiences are turning into books and stuff to teach from. So I'm really grateful, right, for all of the good and great people and all the dummies and shitheads that because I mean, they gave me some great things to teach from and talk about and to help you avoid. And if I can help you avoid a lot of that stuff, then you can propel yourself on the failures and stupidity of others, and or on the good things and the good ideas of others. So I'm combining all of it. All right. I'm grateful that you attended. Thank you very much. And again, if you need me for anything, 917-805-1088, 917-805-1088. Thanks a lot, and good night.